Hi, friends. I'm Jimmy Brock. I'm the pastor of Resurrection Community Church in Virginia Beach. And whether you're part of Resurrection Community already, or whether you just are somebody else who lives in Virginia Beach, I wanted to share with you how we are getting back to in-person worship, why we think that's important, and some of the things we're doing to be able to gather together safely. And to make it easier to follow along, I made some slides for you. So you can follow along as I share our plans. The big picture is that at least for the next 2 Sundays, May 31st and June 7th, we're going to be worshiping outside under a tent in Pungo. And we would invite anybody who wants to worship to come together to join us. So first, why is it that we want to meet together to worship? Why not just keep doing the online thing? We've been doing that for the past 2 months. In our church and Resurrection Community, we've been doing it through Zoom so we can see each other face to face. It's been good. It's been a blessing to be able to do that. But we really want to get back together to worship in person for a couple of reasons. One, our bodies matter. It is good to be together physically. And so we really want to have that opportunity. It's good to hear one another's voices. It's hard to sing on your own, just hearing one person singing through the computer. It's good to be together in a group, singing together as we praise God with our voices. And it's good to eat the Lord's Supper together. One of the things we've missed as a church community is being able to eat the meal that Jesus provided for us. And so we're glad to be able to get back together and to eat the Lord's Supper together. Now, as we think about getting together, of course, there are dangers in it. And so it's worth thinking clearly about what the dangers of getting together are. We were under a stay-at-home order for about 8 weeks, and we've only just now, for about a week, moved into this phase 1, where we can start to get out a little bit more, but there's still a lot of precautions in place because we're worried about creating further outbreaks of COVID-19. So the danger is that this coronavirus spreads very easily through person-to-person contact and may spread from surfaces to people as well. Another danger is that the virus particles can remain in the air, especially in enclosed spaces, for a significant period of time. Another danger is that infected people are contagious for a number of days before experiencing any symptoms. And during that time, they're very able to infect other people, and they don't even know that they're infected themselves. One of the key things to realize about infection to coronavirus is that it's based on being exposed to the virus over a certain length of time. Enough exposure to the virus and enough time to get a sufficient viral load to make you infected. So these are some of the dangers that as a church leadership team, as myself and our elders, and as we talked with other members of the church, other local churches, looked at the guidance from the governor's office and from the CDC and from the best available science, these are the dangers that we've been thinking about and we're trying to work against. We're trying to prevent as we seek to get back to meeting together for worship in person. So it's worth thinking about when we think about what measures we have to take. What is our goal as a community? So our goal is to reduce risk as we return to gathered in-person worship. Our goal is not to eliminate risk. If we wanted to eliminate risk, if we wanted to eliminate all risk, none of us would ever be able to leave our houses. So we're simply trying to wisely reduce the risk as we seek the very good thing of gathering together for in-person worship. Another thing to realize that our goal as a community is to love our neighbors well by not creating an outbreak. We're not trying to eliminate all the risk or really to protect every individual person. So all of the measures that we're taking are around not creating an outbreak. We're trying to reduce possibilities. We simply cannot, given the nature of coronavirus, we cannot keep every person safe or promise that nobody could possibly be infected at our worship service. But we do want to love our neighbors well by wisely reducing the risk as we meet together. So what are some things we'll be doing differently from our normal our normal worship services? Well, first, our virtual building that we've been meeting through Zoom will still be open to join from home. So for anybody who's not ready to come but still wants to participate, you can join from home with our worship service just as we've been doing for this past couple of months. The biggest single thing we're doing differently to reduce the risk is the fact of meeting outside. The best science shows that meeting outside is really a very low-risk environment for coronavirus. So simply by the fact that we are outside, we're taking great strides to reducing our risk of meeting together. Another thing we're doing is we're not passing items. Typically in our worship services, we pass the offering baskets to collect our offerings to God. We hand out worship guides to guide our worship. We pass trays with the bread and wine for communion, and we're not passing any of those things. We'll continue to collect the offerings strictly online, not having any physical baskets at all. We won't be using printed worship guides. We'll have everything up on the screen. And for the Lord's Supper, one of the most important reasons we're getting together, instead of passing our trays, we'll invite everybody to come forward and pick up their own prepackaged bread and juice from the table in the front. So we won't have to pass anything from person to person. Typically, we have a mid-service greeting time. We're not having that. It's not that we don't want anybody to talk to one another. You are welcome and encouraged to talk to one another as you feel comfortable before the service and after the service, but we don't want anybody to feel pressured. And we don't want it to be, we want to be able to spread out and take advantage of the space to be spread out when we talk to one another. So if you want to just come, sit, participate in the service, and then leave without having to come face to face and talk to anybody, but still be in the presence of others, you can do that without feeling any pressure to greet people in the middle. Sadly, we're not going to be able to have any separate children's programs or nursery. It's hard to do outside anyway. It's also a safety thing. It's hard to keep children properly distanced from one another. So we hope to be able to resume those again soon, but not for right now. And then lastly, we'll have hand sanitizer and masks available. Of course, we'd encourage you to bring your own mask if you have one, but if you don't have one, we will have one there for you to use. Speaking of masks, about masks. So more and more masks are recognized as a key part of stopping the spread of the coronavirus. Because it seems to pass person to person, because it passes through the air, the mask reduces the amount of virus particles that you may put out there because you may be infected without knowing it. So masks are really something that we do for the sake of other people. They don't really, the cloth face coverings don't protect us necessarily, though they probably do help some, but they're primarily for in the case that we may be infected and not know it. They prevent us from spreading to other people. The key thing to remember with masks is that we're outside. Masks are not even required in general outside in Virginia. They're required inside buildings because the outside air helps so much. However, because we are going to be together in a sizable gathering for for an hour, for a length of time, that's why we are asking everybody to wear a mask as much as you're able. And the thing to remember is that imperfect use of masks is better than no use. So if you're worried about the mask, I think I'm going to get too hot, I don't know if I can sing in a mask, don't let that stop you from coming. If you're here in the middle of the service and your mask is bothering you, take it off for a few minutes. That's fine. Put it back on when you come up to get your communion from the table. Put it back on when you're talking face to face to somebody. Put it back on when you come to get the coffee and the bagels. We will have coffee and bagels out, but we'll ask very explicitly when you come to that table to use hand sanitizer and to put on a mask so that you're not spreading any infection to the coffee and bagels that are available for refreshment. So the key with the mask is to have grace for yourselves and for one another. If you have a child who can wear a mask, that's great. If they can't, if it's not working for them, take it off. The outside air is our best friend here. So we want to do everything we can, including wearing masks as much as possible to prevent any possible spread, to avoid becoming an outbreak. But we're going to have grace for ourselves and for one another. If it gets too hot, if you can't sing in a mask, you take it off for a few minutes, and that's totally fine. So what else do you need to do to join in the in-person worship? I know I've said a number of things we're doing as a community, some things you need to do specifically as an individual. You need to make an appropriate decision for your own health if you are in a higher risk category. Like I said, we simply cannot protect everybody. We cannot guarantee where everybody who's there has been, whether or not they're infected, whether you might get infected. So those who are in higher risk categories, we encourage you to make the right decision for yourself or for those you're in close contact with, and continue to join us through Zoom, through the virtual church building until the situation gets even safer. It is essential that if you have had COVID-19 symptoms, the fever, the loss of taste or smell, the cough in the past 14 days, have been tested for it or have had exposure to somebody who has it, you may not come. This is not just our rule. This is also a rule laid down by the governor's office for gatherings. You may not come if you have been exposed. That's essential to protecting the health of others and loving our neighbors well. If possible, you can bring your own lawn chair or blanket to sit on. We'll be outside. We have a tent up for sun covering. We'll have some chairs there, but we don't have chairs for everybody. It's both a practical thing, easier for you to bring your own chairs, and it's a little bit, it reduces the cross-contamination if you simply bring your own chairs. If you bring your own chairs, you get your own food, you come up to get your own communion from the Lord's table, and we take it together, that we can have a truly contact-free service with no contact between people or no contact of shared surfaces. We're asking you to maintain the 6-foot physical distance as we are in all places, and to instruct your children to do the same. And one of the things to keep in mind when we're together as a community, we want to do things a little bit more carefully than you might do on your own. So even if you and another person are comfortable with your children playing closely together when you're at home, in your backyard, out in front of your house, that kind of thing, that's totally fine. But when we're together, we want to respect everybody who's there and try to keep our community gathering as safe as possible. So we can talk to each other, we can worship together, but we do want to keep that 6-foot physical distance. Also, I'd ask you to use the bathroom before you come. It may sound kind of silly, but we're meeting in the front yard of a private home. They have plenty of space in the yard. They do have a bathroom, but we would like to minimize traffic in and out of their home. So we'd like to reserve that bathroom use for emergencies. Of course, if you need to go to the bathroom, you can go to the bathroom. We're not going to make you particularly uncomfortable, but to the extent that you can, use the bathroom before you come so we can minimize that usage into the house. So if you want to come, what do you need to do in addition to doing those things? Especially if you're not part of the Resurrection community already and you don't have the address for this home in Pungo, just call or text the church number there, 757-219-2716. Visit the website, resurrectionvb.org/RSVP. Let us know that you're coming. We'll hit you back with the address, answer any questions you have, and we'd love to meet you. So whether or not you're a member of the community, we'd welcome you to join us for worship this Sunday, May 31st, or next Sunday, June 7th. Feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to meet you soon.